All right, thank you everyone. This afternoon of the second day of the conference. I know it's a tough time, so thanks for coming out to chat about bike share. And sure you're interested to understand or think about how I got to this title, the Dow Bike Share. So quick question, how many people have heard of the Dow or the Tao Te Ching? Okay, a few people. I hope maybe I can do a little bit of enlightening as to what this awesome book is about and how it's connected to bike share. When I was thinking about what to talk about today, it had to be bike share because that's all I do and all I think about. And I was thinking about the theme of co-motion, which is the new mobility playbook. I was thinking about the mega events that are coming to LA in the next few years. Thinking about the political and new environment that we have with funding drying up for sustainable mobility, and massive cultural change with AI and the ground changing beneath us. And in my little weird niche of the world of bike share, I've realized in the last 15 years, bike share has adapted to so many different environments and will continue to adapt. And there's nothing, no better example of flexibility and resilience and adaptability than the Tao Te Ching. So first, a quick background on myself. I'm a bike share guru. All I've been doing and thinking for the last 18 years is about bike share. I learned about it in 2007, and my wife and I went on our honeymoon to Paris, and we rode Vélib around, and it was just such an amazing way to connect with the city and the community. And I came back, living in Boston at the time, started my first bike share company. And not long after that, I co-founded a company called Alta Bicycle Share. And this was the launch of Capital Bike Share in Washington, D.C., one of the first large-scale bike share systems in the U.S. I'm in a green shirt there with Mayor Adrian Fenty to launch that system at the U.S. DOT. In 2011, I led the launch of Boston. This is with Mayor Menino, who at that launch bravely declared the car is no longer king. In 2012, I led the contracting and sponsorship and financing of City Bike, and here I am with Mayor Bloomberg and team as we announce the sponsorship for City. So, really exciting times. Not long after that, I founded my own company called Bicycle Transit Systems, and this is the launch of the Philadelphia bike share system, Indigo. I'm in the hat there with Mayor Michael Nutter as we cut the ribbon on Indigo. And then here in Los Angeles at Graham Park, this was the launch of Metro Bike Share in partnership with Metro, with Mayor Garcetti. And it's been an amazing ride. So for about 10 years, Bicycle Transit System operated our three systems, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, and Las Vegas. Last year, we acquired our equipment provider called B-Cycle. And we now have bike share systems in 28 cities around the US. So it's been a wild ride, and I just feel so privileged to have had this career. Here in LA, we've been operating Metro Bike Share. It's been exciting to build it and expand it. We, in partnership with Metro, have powered year-over-year ridership growth, even though the system has stayed at a steady size. And we've increased access with about a third of the rides being reduced fare rides here in LA, which is awesome. And we've gone through so much. The pandemic, the George Floyd protests, wildfires, ice, so much. And we have adapted a lot here at Metro Bike Share. All right, so a little bit of background and why I made this connection to the Tao Te Ching. This is I am not an expert on the Tao Te Ching. I read some philosophy in college, and it really left a mark on me, both sort of deep and simple at the same time. Amazingly, it was written in 500 BC, and 2,500 years later, if you look at this text, there are just amazing insights into individual growth, leadership, business, government. So highly recommend it. It's also not very long. But the reason I want to talk about it today is its approach to change. And according to the Tao Te Ching, and I think I see this in bike share and mobility in general, flexibility and adaptability, it's not a choice, but it is a requirement of survival. So I'm just going to read, a few quotes here and there from the Tao Te Ching. But men are born soft and supple, dead they are stiff and hard. Plants are born tender and pliant, dead they are brittle and dry. Thus, whoever is stiff and inflexible will die. Whoever is soft and yielding will live. The hard and stiff will be broken, the soft and supple will prevail. And, we have examples throughout history and in our lives about this. Species who evolve and survive for millennia, others don't evolve fast enough and they go extinct. Blockbuster, and Netflix. They're everywhere. So I'm going to talk about this with regard to mobility and how resilience is created by flexibility and adaptability. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is, near and dear to my heart, is our acquisition of B-Cycle. As I mentioned, we, for about a decade, had operated 3 city contracts, not diversified, a really inflexible business model. And we had no control over the bike share product or pricing or anything. And we purchased equipment from B-Cycle, and they would do the equipment design and manufacturing and software, but they're owned by a larger company who's not focused on bike share. And after months of negotiation, we acquired them, which was amazing. Now we have multiple business lines. And with all these different opportunities, we can now be much more flexible with our services and our products and really be responsive to the local community, whether it's LA or Madison or Philadelphia or Las Vegas. Every community is different. And now we can invest in innovation, and it's really increased our resiliency. And we're super excited about our future and expansion at Bicycle Transit. But really, what we're here at Commotion to talk about is sort of mobility systems. And when I think about bike share, we have like a network of flowing things, and it's always sort of reminded me of water. And I came across this quote in Data Chain: "Nothing in the world is as soft and yielding as water, yet for dissolving the hard and inflexible, nothing can surpass it. All streams flow to the sea because it is lower than they are. Humility gives it power." And the bicycle has survived 200 years. So much has changed in the last 200 years, and I really do believe the bicycle itself is here because of its adaptability, which is in flexibility, but also our systems. So I'm going to go into a little case study of one of our systems in Madison, Wisconsin. And I will say, I don't have this is like a challenge we're currently facing. I don't have like the perfect case study with like tie it in a bow and finish it up, but it's really interesting. So Madison B-Cycle, we converted to fully electric in 2019, and ridership has just been growing. It's been awesome. And the first quarter of 2025, we noticed that ridership was diving by 25%, a lot. So we went to look at what was causing this drop. And the first thing we quickly discovered is there's a new BRT line in Madison. And the coverage areas, you can look at these two maps, they're very similar. And although our monthly pricing was cheaper than the BRT, our one-time ride pricing was 4 times as expensive. So we decided to look a bit deeper, and we jumped on a BRT. And this is what we found, is tons of young people standing, really enjoying their quiet time, looking at their phones while they're being transported, and not actually jumping on a bike and being actively transported. We got off, our system covers the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and so we got off on a campus, and what we found are empty bike racks, and we found beautiful bike share stations full of clean e-bikes. And we asked ourselves, like, is this a massive cultural change that we need to like deeply think about? In this case, we decided that this is probably not the case for Madison. We have a system in Boulder, Colorado that covers CU, and that system, the ridership has been exploding and continues to explode. So this is probably a case of a great public transit option being there, and we're not going to try and suck rides from the public transit system. We're both trying to fight climate change. But we still need to adapt. So, so we're actively thinking about, what can we do to adapt and flex to this challenge? And, so we do have we've had a similar case in Boulder, where the bike share system 4 years ago was sort of not thriving. And what we did was look at the service area, make sure that move around a whole lot of stations, and we also created a partnership with the university, and ridership has gone out the roof. Bike share is being taken like 15 to 20 time rides per day in Boulder, Colorado in a peak season. So we're optimistic that a lot of these strategies, we can take from one ways that we adapt and put them here. So pricing is another thing. We definitely need to look at our single ride pricing and hopefully increase our partnership with the university to provide low-cost passes for students, looking at the transit agency for connections and cross-promotions. And then we're thinking about new messaging about the experience of a bicycle. Some of the things, we're just sort of playing with some ideas, less scrolling, more rolling, never a passenger on the journey, feel the freedom. And then here's my favorite, let's see who gets it. turn a 6-7 day into a 9-10. Okay, it landed. I didn't make that up. This is one of my colleagues, and I love it, and I have tweens. So, I mentioned a minute ago that we didn't think that the Madison case was, a massive case of culture change. All that being said, culture change and mobility innovation happening all around us. And so, as mobility providers, we have to constantly think about what's happening in our world and fight against a city that's full of automaton cars with people sitting in back. I don't think anyone in this room or anyone in any city wants to live in this city. So to do that, we really have to understand what is happening and to respond to it and adapt. And so I'm focusing on the youngest generation who are adults right now. And there are some cultural trends that are really, really going on. They care about fitness, which is great for us, on social media all the time, but they don't really want to be. These are some surveys we found. And isolation and loneliness from the pandemic, from remote work, is a real thing. And so how do we as mobility providers understand these trends? And an example that I recently saw in a Mamdani election, they understood that isolation is a real thing and made the campaign rallies and events really social. And they had the largest voter turnout from young people in a New York City mayoral race in generations. So, how do we as mobility providers understand this? And we have to be thinking about it all the time. I'm going to pivot for a minute to mobility innovations. Here at Commotion, there are all sorts of flying things. And short distance aviation. As a bike share person, I've often sort of been like, that's not related to us. But it's coming here, as we've seen. And looking at commutes, these red pins are where there's a company called Archer Aviation, who I think is here, is creating hubs for these short distance, and they're going to be here for the World Cup and the Olympics, and they just bought an airport in Hawthorne at that southernmost pin. And so even with this coming to LA in a sprawling city, there's still a first and last mile issue. So I think that as a bike share provider, we have to look at our service area and we have to look at those easy connections with new mobility innovations that come. All right, so finally, there's this concept of space. And I'm just gonna read this quickly. Maybe I'll just read the first one. We join spokes together in a wheel, but it is a center hole that makes the wagon or bike, that's my own addition, move. And so I want to talk about creating spaces for the large events and specifically talk about the Olympics coming here to Los Angeles. And as a bike share provider, we've been thinking about how we would recommend what would bike share look like for the Olympics. And so we have friends in Paris who operate the Vélib system, and Paris 2024 was a huge success with regard to bike share and micromobility. So we asked them, what did they do? And their main objective was to increase the capacity near competition venues. And they created 14 staff valet stations that held 3,600 spots, about 200 to 400 bikes apiece. And what happened with that? So the most surprising thing to me was that overall rides for the Vélib bike share didn't go crazy. It wasn't 2 or 3 times. There was a 20% increase that was probably driven mostly by Parisians leaving the city because of all the tourists, and then outsiders coming in. But unsurprisingly, the long-term pass sort of makeup of riders didn't change very much. But there was an explosive change in the type of rider for the short-term passes. It's not like super surprising, but on a baseline 2023, about a quarter of the riders are from outside of the Paris region. During the Olympics, about 45%, that increased to 45% for the regular short-term passes and exploded to 71% during the Olympics Games for the valet station pass. So, when we're thinking about the LA Olympics, how could LA flex with regard to bike share? So this is a map of the major competition venues in Athlete Village for the Olympics, as well as the transit connections. And LA is a little bit more complicated than Paris because our bike share footprint is much smaller. So there are a number of venues here that are not in the current bike share area. So one of the lessons we learned is expand the system early. We would, I think there's a potential to really expand down to the SoFi Stadium and Intuit Dome, which is in the middle there, and that also happens to be where that aviation stop is. And then there's venues that are outside the bike share zone. So we would say leading up to the Olympics, put some mega stations there, connect to transit, and have these manned valet stations, create a games pass, and work with the various transportations to make sure that connection to bike share is easy. And be able to pivot. So I want to say thank you for being on this journey, and I'll leave you with one more quote from the Tao Te Ching. If you realize that all things change, there's nothing you'll try to hold on to. Trying to control the future is like trying to take the master carpenter's place. When you handle the master carpenter's tools, chances are that you'll cut yourself. So, thank you very much. Enjoy your time.